Good morning, it's Devorah, it's InStory Live, and here's my question. Would you like to be able to shift in a moment from your old patterns where you've been stuck into the new vision of being free to do whatever's calling you forward? Well, I know my answer is yes, and so I spend a fair amount of time thinking about how to do that. I'm a storyteller, a soul story coach, founder of the InStory Way, and I love inspiring people to find their purpose, to live their calling, and share their story. So if that's you, I want to share an idea with you, which is what happened to me over my first beginning of the Passover holiday. It's a very powerful idea, the way that energy and time work. And I'm going to show it to you kind of on a couple of different levels. So as in our religion and in many religions, we have holidays. It was Passover and Easter at the same time. And what happens is the energy spirals. So we say in those days at this time. And that energy from the initial point of creation of an energetic shift is available every year at that time. And so for us in the Jewish world, it is the very powerful paradigm of shifting from either, you could say, slavery to freedom. You could say shifting from constricted, narrow, and restrictive energy into expansive, possible energy. So the story that we tell is the story of the Jewish people in Egypt and how they came out and all the miracles. And what's crazy interesting in the Jewish world is that we, in a lot of the things we say, remember this story. Even to the very first of the 10 Commandments says, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. Like, what the heck? Why is that the first of the 10 Commandments? Like, what's the big deal? Who cares? That was ancient history. Why do we have to say that every time and in every prayer, over the wine on Shabbat called Kiddush, we have in memory of the Exodus from Egypt. Over and over in our liturgy, we are remembering this story. Why? So there are tons and tons of answers, of course. Yeah, there's not one right answer. That's one of the things I love in learning Jewish tradition is that there are many right answers all at the same time, even if they're opposite. So, but here's the one that came to me this year. And it will have more resonance for you the more you know that story. And I'm happy to answer questions as well if you have any. And part of the Seder, it comes a point after many hours of telling the story and sharing symbols and acting out things and singing and so forth, you come to eating matzah. And it's not just the thing you eat, it's actually what's called a mitzvah. It's a commandment to eat matzah. It has two blessings, the blessing over just eating it and the blessing over it being actually a commanded action to do that has connected ritual energy. And then the second time my husband and I had this very amazing kind of mystical experience, just the two of us, for lots of reasons. We've never had it before, and it was kind of amazing and wondrous. And I had learned from the great Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach that the idea of eating that matzah, closing your eyes, and spending a little time, a lot of what I love to do, kind of getting messages, images, metaphors, associations. And as I was chewing that matzah, I kept hearing in my mind, I, God, am always taking you out of Egypt. I am always taking you out of Egypt. And that was a very profound, and it comes from a long teaching from before that, that I'll give over to you in short. And it kind of went like this, in a sense. You put yourself in Egypt, but I am always taking you out. So we put ourselves in our negative thinking, in our struggles, in our difficulties, but God is always there to take us out. And there are kind of two levels of difficulties, and there's two ways that it's talked about how God perceived what was going on with the Jews in Egypt. They were in a very extremely terrible situation. And so one aspect is God saw their suffering, even though they didn't call out. And it also says God heard their cry. When we're in just normal, negative thought and our life is kind of okay-ish, but we're in a negative pattern, we're feeling bad, that's when you have to ask for help. There are times when something so terrible happens that you don't have to ask, God will help you. And it's good to know that. So I hope all of you who are listening are in the not so terrible times. And this is how it kind of played out for me. As I was on my kind of half walk, half run yesterday, and I was thinking about this. So it goes back first biblically to the story of Joseph and his brothers. So before that, his father, Jacob, leaves the house of Laban, which is outside the land of Israel. And he comes into the land of Israel, and there's been a prediction before, and he thinks everything's done. He's moved his family. He's been taken out of his servitude for 21 years with this really, kind of tricky, deceiving person. And he comes and he's back, settled in the land of Israel, and all is good. Except that his sons become jealous of Joseph, who gets the multicolored coat, and instead of being happy with what they have, not comparing themselves to others, feeling each of us has our role, our mission, our purpose unique to us. And this is a personal lesson because it's very easy for me, and I'm sure for many people, to spend time comparing ourselves to others. How come I'm not as far along or as good or as rich or as fat or as skinny or as tall or as fit or as whatever, right? Like, how come I'm not as this, as that person? And, that is never helpful. And many of us were taught this by saying, how come you're not more like your brother or sister? How come you're not more like so-and-so? And so this putting ourselves down by comparing is a really, 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 let's just say it's unhelpful. And I saw in this story with Joseph and his brothers, they went way down that line, way down that line, to the extreme. And they were the ones who basically, by their actions, initiated the whole re-entry into Egypt. Hi, Janice. Hope you had a wonderful Seder. Happy Passover. And you can go back to the beginning. Jacob is in Israel with all of his sons, all is good, until they get so jealous of their brother that they basically sell him into slavery in Egypt, and it restarts this whole exile and the whole thing. And one perspective was they did that to themselves, right? The brothers, by their choices and their reactions. And so I was thinking about how often by our own thinking, we put ourselves down. By our own perspective, by comparing ourselves to others instead of being grateful for who you already are. And so as I'm eating the matzah and my Seder, and I'm hearing God, this idea that God's saying, I am always taking you out of Egypt. So when I went on my run, I was thinking about this and the whole story and what does that mean to me in my life? And so I was having this sort of conversation in my head. Okay, God, we have to ask. So could you just take me out of all of this doubt, fear, worry, negative thinking, comparing, or whatever it is, right? And God's like, yeah, you're out. And then I thought, okay. So God takes them out of Egypt. They have to go. They have to walk. You still have to take actions. They have to walk into the desert. They have to stand at the sea. And here's the thing, you get to ask yourself, who am I in the story? Am I Moses now? Have I really let myself become free so I can lead? Or am I Miriam? And then there's a story about the story that there was one man whose name was Nachshon ben Aminadav, who, when the water didn't part, when Moses is holding up his staff and he says, go, one man walks in up to his nose, and then the water parts. And there's sort of a metaphorical story saying sometimes you have to walk in up till your nose and then the way will open in front of you. But not everybody does that. So we become different people in the story at different times in our lives. So, many years ago I felt like I was really one of the slaves in Egypt, and I just was so calling out to God, lift me up out of here, show me the way. And this year I feel more like, okay, God, take me out of Egypt so I can lead. I want to lead. I want to be a Moses to the people in my community so they can go out and be a Moses to the next person in their community. I want us to be able to stand for each other as the waters part and we make the way for people to walk through where the obstacles have, all those things in our way are cleared and you get to walk through on dry land. And what's so beautiful is when they come out the other side, Miriam and the women are dancing with tambourines. And one of the teachings I heard is, how amazing is it that the women took their tambourines out of Egypt with them? That they already had it in their hearts. We are going to be dancing and singing and making music. And so you can find yourself at all different places in the story. So if you're Jewish and you went through this, ask yourself, what is my message this year from Passover? And if you're not Jewish and you went through Easter, what is your message from that? And if you're like very multicultural and very open, then ask yourself, what is true from this for me? What story am I living in? And that idea that God says, I'm always taking you out of Egypt, that's what people teach without even the words God or the biblical story at all. It's that at every moment it's possible for you to shift. And so it lined up with so many things because I had to say, okay, it's possible for me to be lifted up out of my old stories from my childhood, from whatever's holding me back. If I say, okay, I'm free, like I have, if God takes me out, I have to not put myself back. And that was what was kind of cracking me up yesterday. It was like in my inner conversation was, I said, okay, God, if you're always taking me out of Egypt, okay, I want to come out of Egypt. Okay, you're out. But don't put yourself back there. Meaning, don't then put yourself back in your negative thinking. Or whatever it is. Just saying. So, and this is how we cheer each other on. This is the power of story, image, metaphor, all of this deep work that is so inspiring to me, that I'm so passionate about. It's not a small thing. I mean, this power of connecting to an energetic point in history is very powerful. We strengthen, right now it's Passover for a whole week, we strengthen our ability to leave the old and go towards the new at this time of year. But it's true all year long. So I want you to know at all times, at every moment, you are being lifted up. The capability of being lifted up and out of what has held you back is available to you at every moment. Ask, and then believe, trust. I walked on going, I'm free. Like, okay, I'm free. If I'm free of all that old thinking and all those old feelings, then what? What can I do? Can I lift up my staff and part the sea? Can I dance with my timbrels? In the earlier part of the story, Miriam is the one who never gives up. And so where are you in the story? What do you need to leave behind? And then who and how can you lead? How can you lead? Go towards your purpose to make a difference. So that is my inspiration for this week, and I would love to hear, those of you listening who are already in the InStory group, you are already doing this, and this is to strengthen us to know that at every moment God is saying to you, at every moment I am taking you out of Egypt. Every moment I'm taking you out of the old, narrow, constricted path, and I'm leading you into freedom. Always, at every moment. And I really love that. And it's all we have to do is go forward and not put ourselves back, whatever that is for you. So I would love to hear, what are your thoughts? What is moving you forward? What are you going towards? What are you leaving behind? How are you doing? Share your thoughts with me. And as always, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.